Hey ho, dear ones. We're going to be talking about a topic today that you may think that you've thought about a lot and done a lot of work on, and you might feel like you have a good handle on it. And that's going to be very true if you feel that way. And I'm talking about next level higher self surrender. So that means when the higher self calls you to something, instead of second guessing it, pausing, hesitating, hemming, hawing, which is what we do as humans, you just receive it and take some inspired action or incorporate it or move into a new state of being. And as we evolve the higher consciousness, we are going to be asked to do that at higher and higher levels than we ever have before. So even if we're in this state of like, okay, I've got a handle on higher self surrender, we're all moving to the next level. And whenever there's a next level, there is the next devil to overcome and to heal and to learn from and to integrate. So, this next level of surrender from the higher self is inviting us to do a couple of things. The first, the invitation is for us to not only surrender to the higher self on the big decisions in life, which I feel like for myself and my clients, I see us all having a pretty good handle on that. But it's also to surrender to the little things of life. You know, should I scroll social media right now, or should I read a book or meditate or go for a walk? You know, um, should I just trust what AI is telling me, or is there something that the higher self wants to come in and add to the conversation? So that's the first thing. It's not just like, oh, should I move? Should I marry this person? Should I start a business? Like big life decisions. It's a little bit easier to surrender to higher self. But what about the day to day, the hour to hour, the minute to minute? Can you delegate more and more to the higher self? So it gets to be that point where you're just living from your heart space and life is flowing through you. The day-to-day questions and decisions we make is just automatically delegated over to the higher self. Because there's something very magical that happens when you do that. And I'm going to be unpacking that in today's super powerful episode. But the second thing, so that's the first thing, delegating decisions, both big and small, to higher self throughout the day. But the second thing that we're being called to is really understanding what surrender means. Surrender means no resistance to what the higher self is calling us to. Surrender is an absence of resistance. So that means we're not second guessing. We're not waiting. We're not hemming, hawing. We're not ruminating over whether or not this is right or this is wrong. This means stop fighting what your soul already knows. Because so much of that energy gets wasted in the gap between the call and the surrender. I'm going to say that again. We waste so much energy in the gap between the call and the surrender. So the question becomes, what would happen if I shortened the gap? And these are the two main themes, and they're in essence an opposite side of the same coin. Higher levels of surrender means surrendering more and shortening the gap between the first call and the integration of the call. So let's get into this a bit deeper. Big surrender is often easier than small surrender because it's a big choice. So, of course, we want the big choices in life to be higher self-led, and we do the healing. We maybe even hire a coach or an energy healer to help us move through it. And we can trust. I think there's this idea that we can trust the higher self with the big visions. The big visions are supposed to be higher self-led. And what's for dinner? Well, that can be led by the mind, and that can be led by the autopilot of our habits and our routines. Well, we typically have, pasta on Monday nights, so we eat pasta without questioning it. But part of higher conscious living is developing high vibe habits. And it's really this discipline. There is a sort of spiritual discipline to it. We're light and easeful on ourselves. We don't beat ourselves up. We're not slave drivers to the high vibe habits and living a spiritual life. However, we're not too light on ourselves either to say, it's all right. I'll just skip meditation today. I'll doom scroll my social media in a way that feels bad. That weighs my energy down. There is this sort of discipline that we need to lean into. It's an aligned discipline. You're neither being too soft or too hard on yourself. And within that discipline, that we start to cultivate high vibe habits that raise our energetic frequency over time. And when our energetic frequency is raised over time, we have a bigger access to higher self. We get clearer messages, we get clearer direction. And when that clarity comes through, it makes it more easeful to surrender to the higher self because we're not second guessing it. We know this call is coming from the higher self. It is clear. So it makes it easy to take action on it, integrate it, put it into motion. And when it comes to high vibe habits, I like to talk about the 5 M's: meditation, meals, movement, mindful media. That's a big one as we get more and more plugged into technology and AI. Mindful media. I think that's one of the biggest ones that light workers have to evolve to finding a relationship that serves us and lifts us up and doesn't weigh us down. And lastly, and I did get this word from AI, is mirth. Because I asked my AI bot Roger for a word that started with M that was about fun, play, connection with friends, laughter. And my bot came back and said, oh, that's simple. It's mirth. So are we incorporating the 5 M's into our everyday, every week, so that our energy vibrations are rising over time? Right? And when that happens, we can trust our higher self even more, and we can surrender even more on the big things, but also the little things. And the little things are typically related to those high vibe habits that we try to incorporate into our lives, but it's sometimes very difficult. I have a meditation routine. Meditate first thing in the morning, meditate before I go to bed at night. And I can tell you lately, it's been harder and harder for me to keep that routine. I think collectively, we're just getting more plugged in. We're more reliant on technology. We're more reliant on AI. AI is this very sophisticated tool, and then we start using it, and then it becomes indispensable in our lives. So that means we can't imagine life without it anymore. And none of that is bad, but it just has to be managed and maintained in alignment. And thinking about your 5 M's will enable you to find that alignment and that flow. And the thing that will help you get into alignment and flow with your 5 M's is surrendering deeper to the higher self on not only the big things, but the little things. Now, let's get into the second point of this episode, and that is lessening the gap between higher self calls you to something and you actually start to take action. And let's use an example of a small thing in life. And because I like to offer examples from my lived experience, let me go with my own 5M journey and let me choose movement. Because right now, I'm really in a great flow with how I'm moving my body. And I've really uh, improved so much, and I feel so much better about my daily movement routine. And so, what would happen? So, backing up, we're talking about decreasing the gap between the call and the integration. So, if you back up, let's say we go back a year ago, my higher self was calling me to movement, more movement. And I've always been really good at moving my body. I've always been a bit of a gym rat, and I've always had a membership to a yoga studio, and it's never really been a problem for me, I should say. But then a funny thing happens where I just dip into periods of time where I'm just not moving my body enough. And I actually have the kind of energy in my human design where I really should, for me to maintain energetic alignment, a couple times a week, actually build up a big sweat. So I'm actually really, I'm a projector, but I can't remember what part it specifically is of my human design where it really serves me a few times in a week to really build up a sweat. So when I'm not doing that, my energy will really start to feel off. So about a year ago, I was not doing that, and my energy was feeling really off, and my higher self was calling me to move. Higher self was saying, move. It started out with, you need to start moving. I'm calling you to move. Movement. And I wasn't. I wasn't. So then what was the result of that? What's always the result when we get the call and we resist? It is always some form of worry. Worry is usually the result when you're resisting the calls of the higher self. So in my example, I worry about my health. I worry about weight gain. I worry about just feeling off. I worry that this is going to be bad for my knees. I have not great knees, and I really want to age well with my knees. And I believe if you're moving your body a lot and flexing and strength training, it's actually building your joints so that you can age more gracefully inside your body. And my knees will actually last longer. So I was worried about, and also weight gain is very bad for fragile knees. So I was like, okay, I'm putting on weight. That's bad for my knees. I'm not moving my body, which is also bad for my knees. And so that led to a whole lot of worry. And my higher self was saying, move, but I was resisting. And the result was worry. And that's what happens when your higher self calls you to something and you resist. What ends up happening until you start following through on the higher self's callings is you go into some form of worry, stress, anxiety. And this is low vibrational, takes you out of alignment, and let's face it, it just doesn't feel good. So why do we resist? Why don't we just say, well, my higher self was calling me to move. I know it's good for me. I know I like it. I enjoy it. I like going to the gym. I like going to yoga. I like going for long walks. Why wasn't I, for crying out loud? Why do any of us resist the calls of the higher self? Because there's a block. There's a block. There's a trauma wound, blocked energy, telling you a story. In my case, I was reaching an upper limit problem where things were going well in my life, going well in my marriage, in my family, in my business. And I got to a point where I was having a thought without really realizing it. And the thought was, I don't deserve to be this happy. Life can't get this good. And I think a lot of light workers get resistance to higher self's callings because they have some variation of the story. Well, if I really follow my higher self, I'll get really happy and really high vibe and really aligned, and I don't deserve that. I don't deserve it to be that good. Or we have variations of the story of there are people starving in the world, struggling in the world. So if I'm happy, if I'm aligned and joyful, that's not fair. Why do I get to be happy and other people are suffering? That can be a real light worker limiting belief. So what do? We heal. We notice the painful thought. We go through a 5-step healing process that I teach in Soul Blueprint that has us feeling the feels, breathing and releasing the blocked energy. When we release the blocked energy, it automatically rewrites the story. Now, it might not rewrite it completely, but it will indeed soften the story. It will change the limiting story. So as I started to release these blocks, the story started to change little by little. And I rewrote the story to, I am in alignment when I'm moving my body. I need to move my body to be fully resourced on my path to fulfilling my soul mission, on my path to giving back to my loved ones, to humanity, to my clients, and most importantly, to myself. Because we are all our own number one client. So I rewrote the story. I don't need the gym. I align to the gym. I align to my yoga studio. I align to long walks in nature so that I can keep my God pod, which is my body, healthy, vibrant. I can care for my knees. I can care for my joints as I get older. I maintain a healthy weight and I maintain higher vibrations as part of my high vibe habits. And guess what? Guess what happened? I stopped worrying. And I turned that worry into trust. Trust that my higher self was guiding me to just the right place and in just the right way. And that's what happens when you surrender to higher self. You turn the worry into trust about whatever it is your higher self is calling you to. If your higher self is calling you to a social media platform, maybe it's calling you to do more reels on Instagram, but you worry about how you will be perceived. You'll be worried of ridicule. You'll be worried about shame. I'm using this example because I hear it so often from my clients. Now, some of that might be coming from witch wound trauma that says it's not safe to be visible, expressing your spiritual gifts and in the true authentic you because you actually have past lifetime trauma where you were persecuted for expressing your spiritual gifts and being the authentic you. So this is like actual real trauma that you have stored inside. So you notice that. Higher self is calling me to Instagram reels, but I'm not, and that's creating worry in my life. Worry I won't find clients. Worry I won't earn revenue in my business. Worry that there's people out there who need me and who could find me on Instagram, but I'm not showing up. So I'm becoming my industry's best kept secret. And that's what happens when we don't show up in the ways our higher self is calling us to in our business. We remain the best kept secret. So in this example, you want to find the thought, if I show up on social media, something bad will happen to me. I will be ridiculed. I will be fill in the blank. Feel the feels, breathe, release, and then go back to the heart, back to the voice of the higher self. What are you calling me to do? Show up on Instagram. Who are you calling me to be? So what is my state of being when I'm doing a reel? And when you follow through on those calls of the higher self, the result is alignment. That feeling of I am soul aligned. I am on track. And any sort of worry that was created because you resisted the calls is transformed into trust of the higher self, and it evaporates the worry. The worry just evaporates, and especially because you've healed the locked energy, you've released it. And what it's replaced with is trust, alignment, and flow, and higher frequencies of joy, love, connection. Because you're showing up. You're doing the things your heart is calling you to do. And that has the effect of drawing and pulling in all the things that you need to be fully resourced on your path. So that means visibility. That means clients. So as we move to higher consciousness, higher awareness, we will always be invited to that even next level of trust and surrender to the higher self. And so, my invitation for you this week is to notice one small place where you're resisting a higher self nudge. Shorten the gap between knowing and trusting, and certainly feel the feels, breathe, release of any blocked energy that's showing up along the way. That's a wrap for this week. And as always, until next time, may you be soul alive.